focus on the customer. Everyone says the customer is the most important thing. The customer is always right is a phrase that we say in the US. And something that I realized years ago is that I don't focus on the customer at all. I think about the customer, I love my customer, but I don't focus on the customer. And the reason why is because I want my team to focus on the customer, and I focus on my team. And why is that? Well, your team is the front line. The team determines the customer experience. If the team is not led correctly, if the team is not cared for, if your team is not happy, if the team is understaffed, if you have team members who are in the wrong positions, or if your organizational structure is not built correctly to begin with, then your team will not take care of your customer. And that's why I say your team is more important than your customer. And I hope that this resonates across cultural lines, because this is something that's really, really important to me, and something that I have seen firsthand. To give you a little bit of background about myself, as was mentioned in my introduction, I started out working for an automotive company, General Motors, and then worked my way up the corporate ladder for Daimler-Benz, which is Mercedes, and had a great opportunity to see incredible management and incredible leaders, and also leaders who did not take care of their teams. I went into business for myself in 2012. I bought a small company here in the U.S., and within just a few years, largely due to my relationship with Bni and my chapter members, was able to double the size of that small company. And we were able to buy a second location. And at that point, it began earning in excess of over $1.2 million annually in revenue. Initially, just a $300,000 US company when it was purchased. I joined Bni in 2017 and became the first member of what we call our company-owned regions. In the U.S., we own some regions, and other regions are franchised. And we believe that over the course of the last 4 years, we were able to grow our team from just one member, me, to now we have over 650 directors who are supporting our chapters throughout the U.S. So we've presided over many new team members hired and acquired over the years. And I have seen just amazing results as a result of focusing on the team. So I'm going to talk about step one to begin with. Step one is to prepare well and hire only the best. So Abraham Lincoln, who's one of the better known American presidents, once famously said, if I had 8 hours to chop down a tree, I would spend 6 hours sharpening my axe. And his point, of course, is that if you're going to do something well, you must spend a tremendous amount of time and effort preparing. There are many things that you can do to prepare for and to hire the best. First, you must envision the most successful person for this position. What are they doing on a daily basis, a weekly basis? Begin to capture this and build out a job description. Second, envision the personality attributes of the best possible person. On the job description, I include personal attributes that the right person might exude. For example, for our Bni director positions, we're looking for people who are great public speakers, they're inspiring, they can cast a vision, and they're good coaches. We begin using tools like DISC assessments and use these scores in some of their profiles. Once you have a fully built job description, build out your interview questions. I use 10 questions personally. They cover functional and behavioral aspects and focus especially on how these employees will get along with teammates. And now I'm ready to begin searching for candidates. While I'm interviewing, I want to ask each of these candidates the same questions so that I can compare them to each other. I apply a score from 1 to 5 on each of the candidates' answers. Ideally, I'm only interviewing 5 to 10 people, and on my score sheet, which is an Excel spreadsheet, I'll usually ask the questions in the same order. I'll type out portions of their responses so I can remember them later, and I'll score the answer to each question. I'll take my top 3 candidates and ask other leaders within the organization to interview them to help me determine the best fit. Once we've made a decision, we'll ask our top candidates for 5 references. And I know this is probably a US thing, but in the US, we ask for candidates to provide us with personal and professional references, people that we can talk to have a conversation with them about the candidate. I know 5 is a lot of people to talk to about someone, but this really helps us answer a lot of questions that the candidate may have not told us themselves. It's amazing, oftentimes, that people, when asked the right question, will tell us just enough for us to know that someone might not be the right fit. One of the things I like to do is say to the references, can you share with me 1 or 2 things that I can do to help this person become their best self? And usually that might expose some of the areas of opportunity for the candidate. I spend lots of time trying to find the right fit. Sometimes I'll have a job position open for weeks or months while I begin an exhaustive search. So step two is set expectations during onboarding. In the US, we refer to those first 3 or 4 or 5 months when we begin a relationship with an employee as that person's onboarding period of time. It is so much easier to set expectations in the beginning than after a few months, and certainly after a few years. Before this, we provide our new hires with an opportunity to become slowly immersed in our new culture. We call it Bni Boot Camp. We'll have them read books, take online courses. We'll have them attend chapter meetings, conduct employee one-to-ones and member one-to-ones and more. During this period of time, we call it the boot camp bubble, and we don't allow the employee to begin working until we're really comfortable that they understand the position and the history and the way that it interacts with the rest of the organization. Once they leave boot camp, I'll spend some time with them personally to create a plan for their first few months. I'll assign them a mentor, just like we do in our chapters. I'll also assign them a stretch project to see how they handle it. Can they do big things? Can they work under tight deadlines? Do they interact well with others? Do they meet goals? What does their work product look like? And if this initial stretch project doesn't go well, it's really a bad sign of things to come. But alternatively, if they do great, and usually they do, I'm excited. Hopefully I've used this stretch project to understand their work habits, their work hours, their attention to detail, their work intensity, and this can help me understand how they get things done. I provide them with my feedback at the beginning to let them know how things are going to make sure that we're on the right page. Step 3 is to create a vision and get out of the way. I think that this is an incredibly important aspect of leading teams. First of all, you have to set the vision. As the leader of your chapter, of your company, or of your region, you have to set the vision. You have to be able to articulately describe in very minute detail exactly what your vision of perfection looks like at a very specific point in time in the future. For example, in the US, my entire team knows my vision, and I'll share it with you now. By January of 2023, 2 years after I started this role, The U.S. will be a collection of franchisees and company-owned regions that work collaboratively towards the same goals. We will share resources, tools, and personnel to offer the best support to our mutual customers. We will have a world-class chapter launch organization that creates both traditional and intentionally diverse online and in-person chapters in new areas, helping to expand BNI to new markets and demographics. We will utilize the support of a central fill team that helps chapters and franchisees continue to grow existing chapters. And we will offer retention resources to ensure that our members know every reason why they should renew and choose to do so at unforeseen levels. Our team, our franchisees, and most importantly, our members are all happy. So notice that this vision statement is not a single sentence. It's not even a single paragraph. You can't convey perfection in just a sentence or two. So don't even try. Set a vision for your company, your department, each team, and even set a vision for each project. Set a vision for each employee. Tell everyone in detail what you see in the future when you close your eyes. You can say on January 1st of 2023, January 1st of 2024, this is what perfection looks like. Otherwise, how can they ever expect to meet your goals? Include them in creating these visions. This vision should also convey what could go wrong. If we're sitting at a coffee shop together in 6 months, looking back, what did we not think of? Importantly, once you've created the vision, once you've shared the vision, get out of the way. Don't micromanage your employees. Don't assume that you know better than they do when they're deep in their projects and their jobs every day. I conduct weekly team meetings with my entire department of direct reports, and I also conduct weekly one-to-ones with each one of the members of my team. This helps me learn who they are, helps me understand their motivation, and this helps me understand really what motivates them. Step 4 is ensure that trust is your default. This goes along really well with getting out of the way. You can't get out of your team's way to let them be successful if you don't trust them. I think trust is one of the most important things in business, and oftentimes it's difficult to teach trust. If you've been hurt by someone in your life, and we all have, whether personally or professionally, you may not be ready to just blindly trust people, especially those new in your life. Personally, I'm someone who starts very high with trust, and over time that can continue, or that can go down if someone breaks that trust. A lot of people start very low, and you have to earn their trust over time. Personally, I don't subscribe to that philosophy. And I know, again, that there are probably cultural differences here, and this may not resonate. But I always start with trust. I assume that you have the best interests of yourself, of your company, of your customers, all in mind when you go about your workday. And that really allows me to not micromanage. It allows me to set the vision and get out of the way. So step 5, which is the final step, and then I'll share a couple of unique tips and tricks, is to dispense feedback daily, monthly, quarterly, and annually. We have a saying in the US that feedback is a gift and it can be given every day. I like to use the analogy of a sports coach, and right now is a perfect time to be talking about it because of the Olympics. Can you imagine that if an Olympic gymnast or an Olympic football player or any Olympian with a coach, which is every single one of them, was standing with their coach, who went through all of their routines throughout the entire course of the Olympics. And at the end of the Olympics, they didn't make the medal stand. And at that point in time, when they're heartbroken and they're sad and they're anxious and they're upset, their coach comes up to them and says, "Let me tell you why you didn't get a medal. Let me explain why you didn't get a bronze medal, much less silver or a gold medal. The reason why is because 2 weeks ago, when we were preparing for this trip, you didn't do A, B, and C. When we got here, you didn't do D, E, and F. During your first routine, you made this mistake, that mistake, and that mistake. Now, you did some great things during your second routine, and we really need to continue to build off of those. But in your final floor routine, you just didn't have it. We could feel it. I could tell in your preparation beforehand that it wasn't going to go well." Now, tell me, what kind of coach would not provide their Olympic athlete with feedback along the way? What kind of coach would not tell their Olympic athlete everything that they did great and everything that they need to work on at each moment along the way of their journey? No coach would ever do that, ever. But in business, this happens all the time. This happens every day in the business world. Leaders are afraid to provide their teams with feedback, especially when that feedback is not positive and requires improvement on the employee's part. Giving this feedback can be difficult and awkward. Sometimes we think it will change the relationship that we might have with the employee afterwards. We think that they might not like us or respect us if we tell them the bad things that they're doing. But the fact is that by not providing that feedback, we're doing these employees a huge disservice. I let people know when they join my team that I will provide them with respectful feedback constantly. In exchange, I request that I'm provided with feedback constantly as well. In this environment, everyone tells everyone what they think, and there are no repeated mistakes. At the end of a presentation, I'll ask, "How did I do?" Me, I'll ask that to my team. Or after a program is rolled out, I'll say, "Let's get together and chat about how it could have gone better." We call these postmortems, and we do them for every project and every major initiative. Nothing is off limits. We keep a list of things that we can do better next time. And this really helps to create a culture of feedback. This kind of daily and weekly feedback is mostly verbal and by email, but quarterly, I'll sit down with each one of my team members for a full hour, and I'll prepare for these meetings for hours. Throughout the previous month, I will have grabbed emails, or I'll have written myself emails that are reminders of people doing great things, and sometimes the wrong things. I'll put them in an email folder I have called Human Resources. This allows me to build out my performance reviews with examples that I can reference with everything I'm going to share. And that's critical. People love examples. Feedback leads to opportunities. If you find yourself giving your best employees and teammates wonderful, positive feedback for month after month and year after year, you prepared them to move upwards and onwards. And if you find yourself continuously providing the same feedback, constructive feedback or negative feedback, and your employee's not improving, it may be time to transition them off the team. Personally, I've never regretted letting go of an employee or terminating them. I've never said to myself, I did that too soon. If anything, when we know that someone is not the right fit for our team or our organization, we try to talk ourselves out of it for weeks or even months, and we simply prolong the inevitable. Usually, your gut is right when you think that someone is a bad fit. So those are my 5 steps. I want to run back through them real quick and give you a couple of quick hints that I use personally, and then turn it over for Q&A for a few moments. But going back to step 1, prepare well and hire only the best. I'll share with you during preparation in hiring somebody. Here's a few key secrets that you can use. This is someone who's a bad fit for your team. If you have to follow up with them during the hiring process, if they don't return an email the same day, if they're not early for their interview, if they're not overdressed for their interview, if they haven't done their research on your company, or if you call their reference and say, tell me how I can help this person grow, and you hear things like, I only knew them casually for a period of time, or they're not great at follow-up, or you might need to check up on them. These are all great signs that someone may not be a great fit for your team. The second trick that I use for setting expectations during onboarding, the second key secret, is the welcome to the team letter. This is something that we started doing about a year ago, and it's worked really, really well. We write a letter once an employee joins our team. We will email them a letter that we've personally written that says, welcome to the team. As a leadership team, we collaborated as a group on our welcome to the team letter. We wrote it to set clear expectations up front that this is what it's like to be a part of our organization. We talk about our core values, we talk about our work ethic, we talk about our accountability, we talk about the difficulties of the job and more. And we also talk about how rewarding the position can be and how exciting it will be when we all achieve success together. But we set the tone in that initial onboarding written letter so that they understand what they're getting themselves into. The next key secret for step 3, create a vision and get out of the way, is a system called 4DX. And this is probably an American book. It's a book called The 4 Disciplines of Execution. I'll put it on the screen. I love this book. Personally, I've in the U.S. I've gotten my MBA. I've gone through a lot of different educational classes, and I would say that I would probably trade my MBA in business education for this book. Essentially, 4DX, the 4 disciplines of execution, are obviously 4 different things. The first thing that you should do as a team is to set a wildly important goal. Brainstorm with your team. Focus on, at most, 2 things. A good example is from X to Y by when. For example, we're going to go from 100 members to 120 members by May 1st. That's your wildly important goal. And as a team, you have to collaborate on what this goal is. You have to come together to determine what is the one most important thing that we can do. Secondly, once you've figured out what this wildly important goal is, act on the lead measures. Lagging measures, in this case, like membership or revenue or profit, those are lagging measures. Those are results. Leading measures are things like visitors invited or visitor events planned or director consultant chapter visits or director consultant chapter presentations, things of that nature. Things that you can actually do on a daily or weekly basis to impact the results. The third discipline of execution is keep a compelling scoreboard. You have to keep track. You have to have a scoreboard that shows how you are doing. This could be a dashboard, this could be some sort of a measurement tool, so on and so forth. And it's funny, you can tell human behavior, and I believe this is probably true whether you're in the US, Vietnam, or almost any culture. If you watch a bunch of children playing on the playground, if they're just playing a sport and having a good time, everyone behaves in one manner. But the minute that someone says, let's keep score, everybody acts completely differently. Just as in business, once we start keeping score, and we review that scoreboard on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, everyone behaves differently. And finally, the fourth discipline of execution is to create a cadence of accountability. You can do this by running a WIG session. Now, WIG is wildly important goal. So a WIG session is a short meeting to discuss how you're doing to attain this goal. These are fast-paced 20 to 30-minute meetings. First, you review the scorecard, then you review last week's commitments by each person on the team, and then you plan next week's commitments by person. And this meeting should last no more than 20 to 30 minutes. And if you run these meetings every week, keep the scoreboard, act on the lead measures, you will achieve your wildly important goal. I love setting that vision and using 4DX to get there. Finally, a key secret for dispensing feedback daily, monthly, and quarterly is to start with why. Explain the why when you're giving feedback. If people think that you are simply nitpicking or providing them with one more sentence on a performance improvement plan, your feedback will not be positively received. When you explain your why, you let them know why you're giving them feedback. I want to help you grow in your career. I want to help eliminate any confusion. I want to make you better. I want to win. When you explain the why of your feedback, people are much more willing to accept what you give them. So with that, again, I want to thank all of you. Again, it is great to be at a conference that is so highly attended. I would have expected nothing less of one of our most amazing BNI regions in the world. And I hope that some of the things that I have used to grow our team from 1 member to 700 here in the United States is somehow helpful to all of you. So I know we've got just a few minutes. I'd be